call this meeting to order. This is February 7th, 2017, within the 6 o'clock hour. I will ask everyone that can and will stand for the prayer and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance. Mr. Moore will lead us in the prayer this evening.
Our Father in heaven, we pause to offer up a sacrifice of praise to the God who is our strength and our salvation. How blessed we are to have the opportunity to be glad and to rejoice in giving praise and honor to the Most High God. We pray to you because it is your desire, because it is our need. We realize that faithful and fervent prayer not only changes things, but changes us. Thank you, O God, for always listening and waiting to hear from us. Bless this common council and this administration as they strive to meet the demands of the day. And then bless the citizens of this great city. Empower them to be faithful, to be hopeful, and to be optimistic in their support. As always, we ask your blessings upon the sick, the shut-in, the bereaved, the homeless. Grant comfort and peace to them in every way. In the mighty and precious name of Jesus Christ our Lord, we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for the prayer. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown.
Present.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Here.
Councilwoman Hatcher. Councilman Protho.
Here.
Councilwoman Rogers.
Present.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Here.
Councilwoman Wyatt. President Brewer.
Here.
Mr. President, there are 7 present, 2 absent.
With 7 present, 2 absent, we do have a quorum to conduct the business of the city of Gary. Have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Mr. President, I move that the minutes from our previous meeting be adopted. Second.
And moving properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Protho.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
With a vote of 7-0, the minutes from the previous meeting have been adopted. So ordered. Summary Council pending ordinance and resolution on first reading.
CPO 2017-04, an ordinance establishing 2017 appropriations for the Mayor's Donation Fund in the City of Gary, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2017-05, an ordinance establishing 2017 appropriations for the Special Events Department of the City of Gary, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller, and Special Events Department.
Finance.
CPO 2017-06, an ordinance establishing additional appropriations for Community Development Choice Neighborhoods Initiative Grant in the City of Gary, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller, Special Events Department.
Finance.
CPO 2017-07, an ordinance establishing 2017 appropriations for the municipality set-aside program, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2017-08, an amendment to ordinance number 8954, regulating city order towing services in the City of Gary, Indiana, Municipal Code, sponsored by Herbert Smith, Councilman at Large, Gary Common Council.
Public Safety.
CPR 2017-03, a resolution by the Gary Common Council in support of Indiana Senate Resolution Number 12 concerning the motor vehicle inspection and maintenance programs in Lake and Porter County, sponsored by the Gary Common Council.
Public safety.
Mr. President, is assignment of pending ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown.
Finance Committee has before CPO 2017-04. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Mr. President, the majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2017-04 for reporting out to the council. Finance Committee has before CPO 2017-05. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
And Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2017-05 for reporting out to the council. Finance Committee has before it CPO 2017-06. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2017-06 for reporting out to the council. Finance Committee has before it CPO 2017-07. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2017-07 for reporting out to the council.
Mr. President, the
Councilwoman
Public
Caldwell.
Safety Committee has CPO 2017-08 for approval. For the record, I approve this ordinance. Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Proko? Mr. President, a majority of the committee, Public Safety Committee has approved and reporting out CPO 2017-08. Mr. President, the Public Safety Committee has CPR 2017-03. For the record, I approve this resolution for reporting out. Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Proko?
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Public Safety Committee has approved this resolution, CPR 2017-03, for reporting out.
Thank you.
Mr. President, the Finance Committee would like to report out CPO 2017-04, 2017-05, 2017-06, and 2017-07.
You.
Mr. President, the Public Safety Committee would like to report out CPR 2017-08, CPR 2017-03.
Thank you. At this time, select by any council members at this time. Councilman Proko.
I would like to congratulate Westside Girls Basketball Team for their victory over the weekend. And I hope that everybody can go down and give them some support that they're going to truly need when they go down for the regionals. Thank you.
Councilwoman Brown.
And thank you. I have a couple of announcements.
Yes.
Last week, I was invited to an open house at the Davis Memorial African Methodist Episcopal Church. They have what they call a Saturday enrichment program. And there are three main goals for this enrichment program. Number one is to use culturally relevant teaching strategies. Number two, build relationships between parents, children, school, and community. And number three, to provide a personal library for each student enrolled. It appears to be an excellent program. What they say is their focus is providing activities for students in reading, writing, and math. They have a small computer lab, and they are doing great things over there. So if anybody has an opportunity to stop by, they're there on Saturdays. It's their Saturday enrichment program. Reverend Veronica McPherson is the program coordinator, and Reverend Gwendolyn Sanders is the pastor. Once again, that's the Davis Memorial African Methodist Episcopal Church at 4137 West 21st Avenue. Also, Mr. President, I'd like to announce that Indiana American Water, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, and the Jewels of Fortitude are presenting a community soup kitchen where we will be feeding the homeless and low-income families every first Saturday from 12 noon until 2 o'clock p.m. at New Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church, 1917 Carolina Street. I am going to leave one of these flyers in the council office so that if anybody would like to get more information, if anyone would like to volunteer, please feel welcome to do so. Once again, that's the Community Soup Kitchen every first Saturday from noon until 2 o'clock at New Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church, being sponsored by Indiana American Water Company, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, and the Jewels of Fortitude. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I neglected to acknowledge Councilwoman Hatcher has joined us also. Anyone else this time?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Wade.
first I'd like to say thank you to the Gary Police Department and the Gary Fire Department upon responding to a very personal, violent attack on a family member of mine. Brought my sister home from the hospital after her final surgery for breast cancer. As many of you know, the both of us were diagnosed in July of 2015 with breast cancer, and we're ending this saga. And we came home having lunch. I went down to my house, a couple doors down, and 15, 20 minutes later, I get a call saying she's been robbed. That a perpetrator entered the house. This is broad daylight, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Entered the house, hit her on the head with a metal pipe, and left with just a few dollars. The Gary Police Department responded very quickly, and at the time they didn't even know that I was a councilwoman and that they were responding to me, so I definitely appreciate that. But the follow-up has also been very good. Chief McKinley, who is here today, sent out CSI. I didn't even realize we had such a fantastic unit. Sergeant Farrow from burglary, and Sergeant Richardson, and I wanted to give a shout out especially to Sergeant Richardson, who was very, very compassionate and very thorough. And this just goes to show you that, you know, we're not immune to the violence that occurs just because we're an elected official. And the response that the police department and the fire department who responded with the EMS and the ambulance was, I mean, very, very quick, and I just definitely appreciate the work that you do on a daily basis. And my sister is doing a whole lot better. She still's got, you know, a swollen eye, but I believe that they're gonna catch, and I don't, you know, I don't want to be mean or anything, but I got a couple of choice words for, I can fight too, and if I had been there. Anyway, okay. Thank you, Cedric Kirkendall, for tearing down that IGA store on 43rd and Georgia. We appreciate the demolition department. I know it was contracted out, but I'm giving credit when credit is due because he put it on the list. Joe Van Dyke, they put it on the list for it to be demolished. I got a lot of calls in regards to that building for a very long time, and it did come down last week, week before last. So now we're gonna work on the one on 49th and Rhode Island, that big, you know, monstrosity of a building that's falling down. I'd like to say happy birthday to our legislative assistant, Sherry Smith, who is celebrating her birthday on February 11th. She's here with us on tonight. And I went to a meeting on this past Friday at Marquette School, and I wasn't going to say anything, but the councilwoman from the 1st District, Councilwoman White, is not here. She also attended. It is in her district in regards to whether or not they're going to keep Marquette School open or accept their transformation plan, and they had a third choice. But I had an opportunity to meet the new superintendent of instruction, of public instruction, Dr. McCormick, as well as her legislative director, Mr. Sandlin, I believe was his name. And the community came out, they spoke very well, very eloquently, and I believe that they're going to accept the plan for Marquette. But this is just another, and that's one of the newer schools that was built. And I believe that we have a very caring neighborhood, especially in that area. And this is one of the few neighborhood schools public schools anyway, that's left in the city of Gary. And I want to again admonish Dr. McCormick and Mr. Sandlin and that whole State Board of Education not to close our school, Marquette School. And finally, if you all notice on today, President Trump's pick for Secretary of Education was approved. Betty DeVos, who is an activist for basically for school choice, for school vouchers, for charter schools. I think that this is an end to a very traditional way of doing business in education. She's a billionaire from what I understand, and with very little experience in education. And for the first time in history, the vice president had to break the tie in the Senate. It was 50-50 for a cabinet selection. And I believe that we need to gear up for some very trying times and pay attention to what's going on, because if something is different, it's going to be different in how we treat our children, especially in the area of public education. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Councilman Rogers.
thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the administration. The very first meeting in January, I talked about the railroad and the gate that was on the ground and inoperable on 24th and Virginia, and that has been taken care of, and I really, really appreciate that. One of the other things that I talked about during that, my report at the beginning of the year, was standing water at Dalton Apartments. I have been told that there was a meeting and that I would find out what transpired and what the plan is for in front of the Daltons and actually on Fifth Avenue. And also the South Shore Commons and the issues that those residents are having, I talked about as well. If I could get a response from the mayor regarding that, those two issues.
Councilwoman Rogers, as it relates to the water in front of the Dalton, that has been an issue that we've been working on with the state of Indiana. Part of it is a storm water issue. The other part has to do with the paving, and we anticipate that that will be resolved in a 30-day period. To your point, earlier today, we had torrential rain very quickly, and most of you probably saw water standing all over the city. That was one of those things that is just a function of nature, that the water was falling or the rain was falling much quicker than the sanitary or the storm sewers and the sewers in general could process it. But as it relates to the Dalton, that's something that GSD believes that they can correct, and it should be addressed within a 30-day period. I'm sorry, your second question?
The South Shore Commons?
South Shore Commons, actually, we have communicated with NIPSCO. The chief reviewed the area, and I also reviewed the area. There are a number of wooden street lights, and so that should be done. I will get an update as to when it can be corrected. I think originally the understanding or the belief was that there were no lights. And it turns out that there are some street lights, they're just not functioning. And in addition to that, the trustee is going to put up a fence. It's not lighting that she's going to put up, but she's going to put up a fence along that, the cemetery that is down 20th Avenue. And so the issue for the Commons was that it was very dark, and we are correcting that as well.
If I could just respond just very briefly, there was an attack where a young girl, and she was a minor, she was attacked and she was dragged over there. And so that's where the issue came in regarding the fence. And it was, we did talk about that at the meeting, that needed to be taken care of.
Yes.
But I really appreciate everything the administration is doing regarding both of these issues. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Councilman Scott.
Normally, I don't have anything to say, but today I do. Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Kirkendall for responding as quickly as he did in regard to Nobel. If some of you rode by Nobel recently, you noticed that the front wall of the school was coming down. I don't know how, but it was coming down. And as soon as I reported it, he responded immediately and boarded it back up. It's still an issue. We probably need to start discussing how do we demolish Nobel. So that's one thing. And that's it. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, I really want to thank the Gary Health Department, the director and Inspector Owens and the director who worked with me regarding an issue in the 4th District, and they were very helpful, and there was an inspection done, and I appreciate their assistance with helping me in the matter. Thank you.
Okay. Also, we have some more champions inside the city of Gary. The Lighthouse girls are 3A champions also, sectional champions. So we want to congratulate Lighthouse also with Westside also too. So they're making us proud inside the city. I had talked to one of the gentlemen from Reef and Raleigh a couple of weeks ago, and they informed me that they were going to be doing some demolition of some houses on Benton Street in Gary this month. They said between 8 to 10 houses. I'm leaning toward if we do 10 houses more so than 8. But if you know the area, it's in desperate need of getting some things done. Our department has been through there, taking care of quite a few of those eyesores that have been causing some problem with some of the residents that are still living there, and we are appreciative of that also too. That's it for me. Madam Clerk, Council orders and resolution on third and final.
CPO 2016-83, an ordinance of the City of Gary authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of certain local improvements consisting of the construction and improvements to the system of roads and highways in the city, providing for the safeguarding of the interests of the owners of said bonds, other matters connected therewith, and repealing ordinance inconsistent herewith. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2016-83 on third and final reading.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Caldwell. Overview at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Lisa Lee. I'm an attorney with Ice Miller. We're serving as bond counsel on the wheel tax revenue bonds. I'd like to give you a quick summary of CPO 2016-83. I would then take any questions that you might have, and we also have Curtis Whitaker, the financial advisor on the bonds as well. Basically, very quickly, procedurally, this ordinance was introduced in front of the council on December 6th of 2016. It then was heard by the Finance Committee on January 10th, and notice of public hearings on the bond ordinance and then the next ordinance, the additional appropriation ordinance, have been published in both the Post-Tribune and the Northwest Indiana Times for this meeting this evening. As far as the ordinance, it is a parameters ordinance. The maximum amount of principal that is being approved in this ordinance is $13,800,000. That would be issued in more than one series, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a quick minute. The maximum interest rate is listed as 6%, the maximum term of 20 years, and there's also a debt service reserve fund authorized if needed and required by the bond purchaser, which would be equal to approximately 1 year's debt service. In case the revenues, there's a shortfall in any one particular year, that reserve would be there for you. Some of the key points that I really want to point out with respect to this bond issue: number one, it's payable solely from the local wheel and excise surtax. No other city revenues are pledged to pay this debt service. No property taxes are pledged to pay this debt service, solely from the local wheel and excise tax that was enacted by the council last year. You may only use the bond proceeds from this bond issue to do the improvements to the roads of the streets. These particular revenues that are pledged to repay this bond may not be used for any other public purposes or for any other city project. So it has to be only for the road improvements. It does not constitute debt for the city of Gary under your constitutional debt limit. Because it is a new revenue source with no history of collections, that will kind of dictate how these bonds get sold. Number one, I mentioned that it would be sold probably in multiple series. Looking at a much smaller Series A to begin with, in order to do the next set of road improvements that the city determines are necessary, but also keep the bond issue small enough that we have an opportunity to determine what those revenue collections are, how quickly they're coming in, how steady, so that we make sure that we have enough coverage of those over and above the debt service. The purchaser of the bonds will likely dictate what that coverage needs to look like. The potential purchasers, we do have to do a public sale if it goes to any local banks or underwriters, or we can negotiate with the Indiana Bond Bank. If we can get favorable terms from the Indiana Bond Bank, we are in discussions with them, so that would be an option as well. That's the ordinance. I think Curtis may have some comments as well.
Again, no bank currently has been selected for the purchase of these bonds. Again, as Lisa said, the Indiana Bond Bank is one of the three entities that are being looked at, financial institutions, as well as just going out into the open market. We talked some at the last Finance Committee meeting about how much it would cost per square mile. On an estimated basis, about $418,000 per mile is what the cost would be. And that cost is based on previous bids that have gone out. So it's about $418,000, $419,000 average price per mile. As Lisa mentioned, none of the streets have been identified as of this point, so that's still something that's being looked at. That average price could vary depending on which streets and roads are selected. The mayor wants to do this project in this way to get a lot of roads done at once as opposed to stretching them out over a longer period of time, which is the purpose for this bond coming before you today. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor?
Mr. President, just to kind of address the public policy issues behind this, it's almost like the more streets you pave, the more people notice that their street has not been paved. And I see it, I notice it, and so this is one of our, this is an effort to do as much as we can with the revenue that we have while not overextending ourselves, but at the same time trying to make a large impact. And the good news about this is that it is more likely than not there will be additional match funds that will be available at the state level through the Department of Transportation, and to be able to match these dollars with the dollars that we can get from the state, as we did last year, would even add more of an opportunity to pave and crack seal, because we also know that maintenance is important.
Any questions from any council members at this time? Councilwoman Hatcher.
Okay, so we have, how long is the bond issuance for?
The maximum term is 20 years. I know the city is looking at shorter terms for each series.
Okay, and we're asking for $13,800,000
is the maximum principal amount total.
And how much do we get in every year from the wheel tax?
It'd be $1.2 million is the estimate.
1.2. So we're looking at 12 to 13 years. What's our interest rate?
There is not an interest rate. These have to be publicly bid.
Okay.
And so when the public bid, the bidders know the best, the one that comes back with the best interest rate is the one that typically wins bids like this.
And so what is the purpose of, we're going to get 1.2, and I guess this is more for the mayor, if we get 1.2 to 1.3 in per year, I heard the number $400,000 per square mile?
Per average per mile.
So
Average
why
per
wouldn't
mile.
we just take, the 1.2 and do 2.5 square miles every year?
Essentially, 1.2 million, as an example, would get you 25th Avenue. It might get you, and that's 25th Avenue probably from Clark Road to Broadway. It wouldn't even get you 25th in its entirety. It would get you Grant Street from probably 35th Avenue all the way down to 4th. And so
I mean, those sound like big projects to me. I mean, if we went from 35th to 4th on Grant, I'm just saying, are we saying that we're going to get this lump sum and do all the projects at once?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the, when I talked about the public policy reason earlier, it's an effort to do more sooner. Because what happens is that when you do the streets, it really emphasizes the streets that aren't done. So as an example, you have 11th Avenue that has been done, but then when you go down Harrison Street, it really makes that stick out more. Or if you look at 8th Avenue, which has been done, and then go down 6th Avenue, which has not been done. And our issue is that we have so many streets that are still listed, so many main streets that are listed as poor or fair, that it doesn't even give us a chance to get to our side streets. So this allows us to deal with the streets that are poor and fair, and to at least start with the side streets.
And how much in bonds does the city currently have outstanding right now? Not for just the wheel tax, but I mean just as a whole.
It's about 13.1 million, Mayor.
Our total outstanding
Bonds.
Yes.
Yes.
bonds right
And
now.
those were those casino bonds that we I think it came before the council
I think that
last
was-
year. Yeah.
That's the only one that we currently have hanging out.
Yes.
And the administration is confident that they can take that 13 million and I guess I'm wondering like how many construction companies are necessary or paving companies to be able to do that much paving at one time? Or would they prioritize and do one at a time?
We would prioritize, and that's why the bonds would be or issued in series, because we would prioritize and then, but this would allow us to keep going. What you've seen us do up until now is, in 14, we did 6 million. This year, we did about 4 million. We have enough to do maybe $1.5 million, $2 million for once the weather breaks in 17, but we're piecemealing it. And still, I mean, you know, I don't want to sit here and give anybody the impression that if we get this bond, then we'll get all of the paving done. That's a $40 million job. Right. But what it will allow us to do is get a lot further than we have gotten to date.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman White.
what monies currently are used for street paving?
Currently, we've used casino revenue. We have also used some dollars from the state, as I talked about the new state program. We were able to use the dollars that were released last year. It was a refund on the LOIT, and that was earmarked for paving, and so we used some of that for the paving last year, and we have about probably $200,000 to $300,000 that we get annually from MBH that we're able to use as well.
Okay, so that will be, so then the wheel tax will be in addition to
the other dollars.
those other
Yeah,
dollars.
the $4.3 million that we got from the state was a one-time distribution.
Right.
The casino revenue, that was money that was kind of set aside because Reese Riley, when we did it the first time, we were able to get a payment plan, quite frankly, and so we were able to pay it over the course of 2 years.
Okay. And then, Lisa, I think it is, you indicated that there is no interest rate, but I saw a 6%?
No.
Up to?
This is called, what we call a parameters ordinance. You are approving outside the maximum parameters of the principal amount, the interest rate, which the maximum being approved is 6%.
Okay.
I don't know today, if they were sold today, would that be closer to 3 or 4?
It just depends on...
It depends on the purchaser.
On the purchaser.
But when you do series, you know, you'll do one, you may do one this year, you may do one later this year, or you may do the next one early next year. We don't know what interest rates are going to do.
Okay.
And it has to be, what you approve has to be higher than the longest term bond interest rate. So that's why you look at a 6%, even if today it would be quite a bit lower than that. So the maximum interest rate being approved is 6%. That's
Okay.
not what we would expect to see for bonds sold early this year.
And then for preparation, what does Ice Miller get?
For preparation, we are bond counsel, so we would have a bond counsel fee for our hourly time to do the bond issue, to draft the documents, to come here today, to organize, to help Curtis with the disclosure on the bonds, to sell the bonds, those types of things.
Okay, and historically, how much has that been?
For a brand-new revenue source like this, that's probably going to be in the 45 range.
Okay, so 45,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other expenses for?
You would have financial advisor fees typically. You may have a placement fee or underwriter's fee from a bond purchaser, which could be equal to up to 1% of the bond issue sold at the time. That's, I think 1% is the maximum approved in here. If it goes to the Indiana Bond Bank, it wouldn't have the 1%, but they do have a bond bank fee for issuing bonds through the bond bank. So you have those are basically the cost of issuance. Local, you may have local counsel, although you have a corporation counsel instead of an outside counsel. You have bond counsel and you have financial advisor, and then the bond purchaser fee, whatever that might be.
Okay. And I guess my concern again, is one, the wheel tax is very unpopular. Ever since we passed it, I've heard nothing but negativity in regards to, you know, it's just another tax, another tax, another tax. Right now, the Democrats have proposed legislation to assist in road repair, up to $900 million. And I guess my issue here is, you know, the debt that we're in already, the $9 million structural debt deficit that we're in, the $100 million assessed valuation deficit. And I just, you know, it's difficult to support going into debt when you have monies coming in. I get it that, you know, we want to do as much paving as possible. We waited this long, and we get some extra money coming in, and we want to leverage more, and we want to borrow more. I just have difficulty with that. That's all. Thank you.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
Just to shed a little light on the legislation, the $900 million is actually going to a number of sources, largely state highways. And so
realize that.
the purpose for that money wouldn't necessarily give us the same type of windfall. It would provide us with an opportunity to apply for a larger pool of money than the $1 million that we got last year. So, I mean, that $900 million sounds like a lot, but once they start doing state highways, which are in grave need, as we all know, that would be a different, that would not necessarily be a viable revenue source for what we're talking about. But I understand your position.
I just think it's just, you know, another way. And when we haven't seen everything that's going to be coming down from the state in this area, I'm just a little leery. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I'd like to say inside the meeting, it was discussed about the overall the $13.8 million being talked about. And because this is a new source, it was advised to us that the first round, they would not be going for the max, because any person that will look to purchase those bonds will be looking at that revenue source coming in, being a new stream of funds coming in. And they wouldn't probably want to take that risk also at the same time. So it will be a smaller pool that they will be going after, as it was explained inside the Finance Committee. There will be a smaller pool that they would be going after. So it wouldn't be the whole 13 million plus. Thank you all.
Thank you.
At this time, public portion now open. Anyone would like to speak for or against CPO 2017-04? That's not 2017-04.
Yeah, good afternoon,
sorry,
ladies and
that's
gentlemen, Gary City Council. My name is Jason Reeves, and I do some writing in terms of the Hearn Foundation, which is an endowment of business and engineering solutions. I think it's valuable to take observation of the bond bank and the resource of financial and economic disciplines to fund roadways and sewers and whatnot. If the bond is, if the revenue is, or the economic factor of it is for roads, that's one thing. Sewers, that's another thing. But I would hope you'd be mindful in terms of voting on this, as well as the administration, and take observation of the long-term discipline of engineering, which we seem to be slightly behind in terms of professional standards. Sure, if you do roadways, it seems logical to do sewers first and then roadways second. Because if you dig underground, you're going to tear up the upper ground, and then you do the upper ground first. I'll give you a clear example of another concern when we built Brunswick Library. The medium in the roadway wasn't considered during the construction and engineering of the project. So when people pull out of the library, they have to actually make a U-turn. The medium should have been upgraded in the proper way. So there's a discipline and study of the engineering resources of actually upgrading roadways as well as the format of sewers below in the subgrade. So I hope you recognize this so that you know what these financial disciplines are not wasted or used in an inappropriate way and used in the most efficient way in terms of engineering. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say at this time, with our city being in a deficit, and we looking at the end of this year of $100 million in a tax shortage. And I'm gonna say this to you, Councilman. Do you want to put this city in bankruptcy? Now, I would wait on Congress and the Democrats to see how much of that money. We may receive a big portion of that money. But if we take and support this, and I'm gonna tell you something, when you talk about bonds, interest, okay, our country right now is unstable. We got an unstable president. Okay, the market has went up and down. These people, when they say they floating the bond, they're about making some money. If ain't nobody making no money, they ain't floating no bond, okay? I got enough sense, was taught enough that when I was attending college and even high school. Now, if this council sits here and fall for this radical, and then another thing that I don't agree with, now we're gonna float and say we're gonna do some streets, show me a list of the streets. Because I ride around the city, I see different areas that were paved. And people complain to me because I talk to people all the city. Why did they pave over there? Why didn't they pave over here? So if this council sits here, it's going to come back to hunt you, those that vote for it, okay? It's going to, I'm telling you right now, it's going to come back to hunt you. We're going to be in so much debt, okay? And I'm not being personal against the mayor because she might have fine ideas and great ideas, but that don't mean them ideas are right at this time. When you're in a crisis and your city is going under financially, you don't spend more money, you tighten up money. So y'all think about that.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name's Jim Nowacki. I live in the 2nd District, and I attended all of the Finance Committee meetings where we heard this ordinance being presented. And I was disturbed by several things. Number one, I'll bring out tonight when the representative of Ice Miller says that this money needs only to be used for roads, cannot be used for anything else. That's not technically true. It can also be used for sewers that affect the road and for sidewalks adjacent to the road. So I would just correct Ms. Ice Miller. I don't know what we're paying her, but we're apparently paying her too much. I'd also bring to the council's attention, do you remember when the administration first brought this up and gave you that useless stack of paper and expected you to wade through 4,000 sheets of paper? I hope it found an appropriate place in the recycling bin. I don't know how much it costs to copy. Thousands of dollars to copy it. It was perfectly useless, and that's the way you get bamboozled. Let's take a look at this. We're taking $1.2 million of funds over 20 years. A little bit of math, that's $24 million. Ice Miller says we're going to take that $24 million and magically convert it to $13 million. That's not good math in my mind. All right, let's take a look. If we use the testimony given by our Director of Public Works, she said that $3 million would do about 5 miles of roads. All right, do a little math. We can either do 40 miles of road or we can do 22 miles of road. The choice is yours. You pass this, we do 22 miles of roads. You don't pass this and use the money as cash, and we can do 40 miles of road. We had testimony that we hired one of the employees of Reith Riley to supervise this, because our own Public Works Department says this project is too big for us to supervise. We're going to have to hire consultants to supervise the work because it's such a big contract. If we were to use David Lillard, who's responsible for some of the worst paving in this city, and Ms. Rogers, I'd point out Fifth Avenue, where that flooding is. That was a Reith Riley project. I've been complaining about it for years, even at this city council. And we're going to put them in charge of supervising this expenditure. I think it's wrong. We take a look at, is that my bell?
That's your bell, Mr. Wackey.
We've got another ordinance regarding this, right?
Yes.
Because I just got worked up.
All right.
All right, thank
Being
you.
worked up. All right. Ms. Johnson.
Good evening to the council. Whether I'm for or against it, I have to sit on the wall because my concern is, I heard about an article, and I haven't had a chance to research that article just yet, that was in the Bond Buyer concerning the Gary Community School Corporation and what the state is getting ready to do. And my concern is, if the bond buyer is already putting the article in about what's going on with the school corporation, what would be the next article what would the subject of the next article be about in terms of what our city is doing to get bonds to do work here? Will it be positive? Will it be negative? And what kind of influence would that have on the financial community? So whether I'm for or against right now, I still have to sit on the wall because of the fact that I would have to do more research to find out. But I wanted you all to keep that article in mind. If you haven't read it, please look it up, because that article could have a domino effect on what else we want to do in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Public portion is now closed. Any further discussion from any council members at this time? Let me just say, I have seen in the past where the city has piecemealed this city. And when I say piecemeal, I mean the roads. You cannot go from the east side, from city streets, to the west side, where you have an easy road where you just can take with no problems. Majority of your surrounding communities have good, smooth roads. You can't go north or south inside our city, where the roads are smooth. My daughter is starting to drive, and I let her drive to school this morning. And I really couldn't tell if she was doing a good job or a bad job, because she was dodging so many potholes or hitting so many potholes. But if we have to make our city look appealing for investors to come, people want to move here. I have a hard time trying to convince my friends about moving here. And it's some very good houses still in Gary. There are. But it's hard trying to convince them from what people see. Before they get to know anything about crime or the unemployment rate, they're looking at your roads. They're looking at lots that need to be cut. This is a time where we can put our best foot forward, show that we're doing something. We have people that still live in our city, and we have to put that investment back into our community. Now, it has already been explained inside our committee meeting that they will not bond up to the whole $13 million. It will be done in series. And no, they will not take it out into the entire 20 years. Just like if you would buy a car, hopefully you were trying to pay that car off quicker than letting all the interest kick in. It's the same way you run a city, you will run your home pretty much. So I will be in support of this, but I'm trying to get you to understand the logic of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to make a maximum of getting more streets done inside the city, which I don't think majority of the residents will really mind about us getting these streets done. It's either that or you coming down here complaining about rims that's busted or tires you're paying for on a daily basis pretty much. Everyone in here probably have drove here and dodged a pothole pretty much. I can tell you I could drive down streets and I know which lane to get and when to switch over. But it shouldn't be like that. Our city should look a lot better than what it is, and I applaud the mayor for this effort and thinking outside the box and how we can, with more funds available, we can go for a greater match at the same time. So, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
No.
Councilman Protho?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
No.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
No.
President Brewer?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 3 noes.
With 5 yes, 3 noes, CPO 2016-83 Passed. So ordered.
CPO 2016-84, an ordinance of the City of Gary appropriating the proceeds of the local will revenue bond, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller.
Mr. President, I
Councilwoman
move
Brown.
passage of CPO 2016-84 on third and final reading.
Have a second?
Second.
Council Smith, second. Overview at this time.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, CPO 2016-84, this is the ordinance that appropriates bond proceeds if you choose to issue one or more series of the bonds in the previous ordinance. This is the ordinance that allows you to actually spend those funds. As you know, you go through a budget process each year. Bond proceeds are never a part of that budget process, so you always have to do an additional appropriation, and that's the step that is taken under this ordinance.
Any questions from any council members? Thank you. At this time, public portion is now open. Anyone like to speak for or against CPO 2016-84?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Jim Nowacki. I live in the 2nd District. And I just remind the council that the $1.2 million that we receive every year can be used for anything regarding the roads, curbs and gutters, sewers that are related to the roads and sidewalks, and Ms. Ice Miller absolutely gave you the wrong information. Now, if you pass this as a bond issue, it's written in that bond issue, the roads. But as is identified in this legislation, the state legislation that enacted this, it's very clear what their intention was. It's to give cities wide use of it for fixing streets and sidewalks in their city that they identify. So I'm just sorry that the council gets the wrong information from the council, from your hired from the attorneys that are hired. And I would remind you, it says right on the ordinance that it's not, that the ordinance you passed is not to protect the city. It's not to protect the taxpayers. It's not to make sure that the roads are done right. It's to protect the bond owners. It's to protect the people who buy the bonds. That's why she's here. Not to help the city. She's here to help the bond buyers. No other purpose. You know, I bring the council's attention that when there was when the city made that big PowerPoint presentation, and the numbers were wrong, and when I pointed it out, those numbers are wrong. Oh, they said, well, we'll come back and we'll correct it. That's the rush this administration is to get this money. They want to get their hands on this money. They want to waste this money. They want to make sure that their friends are taken care of right here. They want to make sure the council didn't get accurate information. I don't know if it was corrected or not. But this is the way, you know, every time the city gets a little bit of money, the first thing we do is say, let's bond it up, let's spend it all on one foolish project. No one would be ashamed of this council if you spent $1.2 million on road paving every year, maybe use it for potholes, maybe use it for sidewalks.
Thank you, Mr. Nowacki. Your time is up.
There's no shame. Thank you.
Once again, the truth will set you free. And I'm totally against this ordinance. And I will say this here to my councilman president. There's 3 elements why people move to a city. The first is the job market. The second is crime, and the third is education. That's why people move. They don't move looking at the roads. But it's a shame when I see that only 3 councilmen will stand up for the citizens of the city. And I tell you, if you really knew what's about to come, what's about to happen, and I'm going to tell you some things about to happen. It's going to shake Gary. And it said that only 3 people. But one thing, Jesus Christ was one person, but he stood up.
Public portion is now closed. Any discussion by any council members?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Wade.
I disagree on the process on how we get it done. I don't disagree that we need roads paved. We know that we need roads paved. That's not even the issue. I need a roof on my house. But right now, I don't have all of the money that I need to get it done, and I refuse to put it on a credit card because I don't want to pay that interest. But I'll get my roof done when I get the money. And those of us who understand budgets, because as Mr. Wright indicated, these are not the best of times for the city of Gary, and I'd rather be cautious. I'd just rather be cautious than to step out on that limb and then, you know, somebody's going to tell us that the sky is falling. And we've been watching the sky fall for years. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else? Councilman Smith.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Okay, the fallacy of the analogy that was just given was, okay, I need a roof. Okay, and I don't want to put it on the credit card, so I'm going to wait. The longer you wait, the more it costs because it created more damage. So what do? Do we go now and expedite taking care of as much as we can? Because people in Gary deserve to drive on roads just as decent as they are in Maryville, Porter County, and anywhere else. If you ever want to sell this city and the opportunities here, we talk about exploiting opportunity, bringing businesses here. They look at all those things. You got to do some things now to move the city forward. No one is talking about spending $13 million at one time. No one. They're going to use what they can use right now, and then we'll come back and we'll do some more. But the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost. Because at some point, if you don't repair the roads right now, you're going to have to go down to that substrate to bring them back up. And that's going to cost more. So that whole analogy about I'm going to wait on my roof to be repaired until I get the money only creates more cost. We're trying to find the most efficient way of getting the most bang for our buck. And that's what we're doing here. I was at the meeting, the committee meeting, maybe some other council people should have attended those committee meetings where all these questions were answered. And there was in-depth discussion about this. I'm going to be a yes vote on this all the way through because we don't have the time to wait to let it accumulate and cost more. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. President?
Go ahead, Councilwoman Wade.
Okay, so I need some side paneling on my house instead of a roof. And maybe that won't be the damage. Come on, guys. The analogy is that whether we want to go into debt for something that we can wait for, and as Mr. Nowacki pointed out, doing 40 roads instead of 22, having to pay for, we can get a couple more roads done if we forfeit on paying Ice Miller and the other contractors that are going to be paid just out of servicing this bond. So that the councilman thought my analogy was an improper one is not very important to me. The important thing is that we are in debt, and it's not going to get any easier. And pretty soon, we don't know whether or not people with the vehicles are going to be paying. Some people are going to be leaving town. Some people, do we have the Illinois people paying now? Are the folk who have been here for 6 months or more, now registered in the city of Gary in Indiana? Are we going to be getting all of the money that we are supposed to be due? Because it's only a few people that's going to be paying for all of us. And I know senior citizens with 2 and 3 cars are like, hey, wait a minute. Can I just pay for the one car? No, you got to pay on all of them. So, again, the analogy was only meant to serve a purpose. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, the last one. I think that Mr. Nowacki that spoke about the 1.2 and just spending that money to do 1.2. What happens when we do the 1.2 and the majority of them is on the south side or the north side of the expressway? That creates an issue in your district or Councilwoman Rogers' district where your constituents want something done. $1.2 million does not go that far. And if we had a perfect city where we was keeping up on our infrastructure, yeah, I would say, no, don't do the bond. Let's do the 1.2 and let's go on 5th Street that we only need. But we all know inside our districts, there's hundreds of streets that need to be done. We all have that. So to sit up and say we could take 1.2, we could piecemeal this thing together for the next 20 years, it's not going to happen, you all. It can't happen. Not if we're trying to make the greatest impact in this community that we can do. If we take $1.2 million, trust me, quite a few districts are going to come up very short. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
No.
Councilman Proto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
No?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
No.
President Brewer?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 3 no.
With a 5 yes, 3 no, CPL 2016-84 has passed on all 3 readings, so ordered.
CPL 2017-01, an ordinance authorizing the City of Gary, Lake County, Indiana, to make temporary loans to meet current running obligations for the use of the Police Pension Fund and Fire Pension Fund, and anticipation of revenues to be received in such fund in the year 2017, authorizing issuance of revenue anticipation notes to evidence such loans and the sale of such notes to Fifth Third Bank and appropriating and pledging the revenues to be received in such funds to the punctual payment thereof, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2017-01 on third final reading.
Second.
Moving properly second. Overview at this time.
Good evening, council members. We're seeking authorization to make temporary loans for the police and pension funds. The police and pension funds, the revenue loan that we're asking for is supported by pension relief. The pension relief is distributed to the city by the state. So unlike TAWs, where they are repaid by property tax, a pension loan is repaid by pension relief from the state. They raise the funds and they distribute it to the city. The distributions to the city for pension loans comes in June and in October. We're expecting about $10 million. We're requesting $4.1 million. We usually have enough funds left from December 31st to take us through March or April. Usually it's April. This year it's going to be March because of the raises that we've given. However, even though we've given raises, in 2016, we get reimbursed in 17. So any raises in 2017 will be reimbursed in 2018. And that would be for the $2,500 for our public safety employees that we gave in 2017. Are there any questions?
Questions for any council members? Thank you, Ms. Gray. Thank you, Ms. Gray.
You're welcome.
At this time, public portion is now open. Anyone would like to speak for or against CPO 2017-01?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Jim Nowacki. I live in the 2nd District, and it seems everything's an emergency, everything's a rush. No one would object to the council borrowing money to make sure that the pensions are are intact in our city, making sure that our first responders are secure, knowing that the city has taken action to fulfill their responsibilities to protect the interests of our first responders. What I do find in this, and of course it happens whenever we're in some emergency rush, something we couldn't anticipate, even though every year we kind of anticipate this, we're selling the notes to Fifth Third Bank in advance. Fifth Third Bank. They've got a couple of branches in our city, and perhaps they're entitled to some business. But we've recently read about some history, some unsavory history of Fifth Third Bank. I don't know if you've read the articles, but what they were doing was they were ripping off borrowers, particularly black Americans in their community who were buying cars. And what they were doing, they were saying, we're going to charge black borrowers more than we charge everyone else. And what we're going to do is we're going to let the salespeople who are selling these cars pocket the difference. Well, in this instance, just to make an analogy, the salesperson would be the Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson in this instance. Now, I'm not suggesting that Fifth Third Bank is passing along any cash for this deal. I'm not suggesting that. But I'm saying if you know the history of Fifth Third Bank and how they do business in black communities, you know that's how they do it. Now, I'm sure the mayor would say, no, I haven't gotten any campaign contributions from Fifth Third Bank, and that probably would not be true. Whether that was related to the council making borrowing, I don't know. I'd like to examine the mayor's
Come on, Mr. Nowacki, bring it home.
I would like to examine the mayor's campaign contributions a little closer, see how much Fifth Third Bank
They don't have nothing
is
to do with
passing
what
along.
we're talking about here. Stick to the ordinance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No,
But I'm talking about
that's
Fifth
not in
Third
order.
Bank and how they use bribery, how they use
Thank you, Mr.
illegal
White.
financial means to get a loan, and I think we should do better. Thank you.
Sitting down public portion is closed. In discussion, any council members? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
No.
Councilman Provo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
No.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
No.
President Brewer?
Yes.
The vote is 4 to 4? 5 to 4?
5 to 3.
5 to 3, I'm sorry.
With a vote of 5 to 3, CPO 2017-01 has passed on all three readings, so ordered.
CPO 2017-02, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioner Janine Roper, 8136 Hickory Avenue, Gary, Indiana. Property at 637 South Lake Street.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2017-02.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Brown. Overview at this time.
Ms. Roper? Yeah. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council.
Good evening, Clerk.
We have before us petitioner Janine Roper of 8136 Hickory Avenue. She would like to open up a veterinarian medical center at 637 South Lake Street in Gary, Indiana. It is properly zoned, but she needs a special use in order to open up this type of facility. Letters were mailed out to the neighbors within a 300-feet radius, and we had I did have that information, but I think there were 3 that came back for that, and so many came back undeliverable. I'm sorry I don't have that information with me. I thought it was in the folder, but the the BZA board, we did approve it, and it was favorably recommended by our board. Ms. Roper is here. She's a native of Gary, and she has decided to come back to the city to open up this type of business, and if you have any questions, she will be glad to answer them for you.
Is there any question from any council members at this time?
Mr. President, I don't have any questions, just a comment. When I went to the meeting, the planning meeting, she was there and she said that she is in fact a veterinarian and that she has come back to Gary to open this animal, this animal hospital or whatever. And I am just proud of the fact that you have decided to come back to Gary and offer this service to our city. So I'm certainly supportive of your efforts.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Quayle.
I have one question.
Yes.
Did you go to Tuskegee for your veterinary degree?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay, me too. Thank you so much for coming back to the city of Gary.
Thank
We appreciate you, and we appreciate the services that you're going to be offering.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Hatch.
I'd just like to say it'll be nice to take my little puppy to somewhere in the city instead of out to Portage to get her shots every year. So I will be seeing you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
At this time, public portion is open. Anyone would like to speak for or against this ordinance, you may approach the mic. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name's Jim Nowacki. I live in the 2nd District, and I did attend the Planning Commission and the Planning Committee meetings where Dr. Roper made her presentation. I was very impressed. I'd like to first make sure that the council is assured that this is a clinic, not a hospital. There will be no kenneling of animals at this facility. It wasn't mentioned in the overview, but I think it's important. And I can also tell you that other businesses on Lake Street and residents in the surrounding areas, the east side of the city, are excited about this. You know, it's a service desperately needed because we do have a lot of animal lovers. And in my conversations with Dr. Roper, she said she's going to limit her practice to dogs and cats. So don't expect anyone to bring in any alligators, giraffes, or other types of wildlife. Although she's fully competent to heal other animals. So this is desperately needed. And I'm going to wish Dr. Roper and the Provident Veterinary Services the best of luck, and I know that they're going to do a wonderful job, and I expect that the council is going to pass it unanimously. Thank you.
Kendra S. Johnson, 4th District. Thank you for coming home. So many times I talk about our young people and how they go away and they get an education and they get a degree, and usually somebody in the outside world snatches up our talented people. But we have a young person that wants to come back and give back to this city. And I'm in support of that. And I'm going to say to you the same thing I say every time a business comes here before you all and wants approval. Number one, please become a member of our Gary City Chamber of Commerce. And number two, go to the Gary School Corporation or to one of our other schools and talk to our young people about what you do and how important it is. Oh, and number three, if you've got any cards, please let me know, because I'm quite sure I know a lot of people that are looking for a veterinarian and don't want to go outside the city. They want to patronize a business in our city. Thank you.
I really like to applaud this young lady and appreciate that here's a young individual that has went off and received their education and has came back to help their city. not an individual that's coming here to take money out of our city to put city money into our city. So I wish you success. Glad to have you aboard, and thank God for you.
Public portion is now closed. Is there any other comment from any council members? I had mentioned inside the meeting, I wish this business great success if the council passed, and I pray we will do that tonight. But I see on that Lake Street corridor, a lot of businesses are starting to fill up inside those different compartments, and that's a good thing. And I can just contest by this young lady having a business on Lake Street. She would like for those roads to be nice and paved when her customers come through there too, to make her business look more appealing.
Lake Street is
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
Yes.
Councilman Prothon?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 8-0.
The vote to 8-0, CPO 2017-02 has passed on all three readings. So ordered.
CPO 2017-03, an ordinance revising 2017 appropriations for the City of Gary Parks and Recreation Department Fund and the Marquette Pavilion Fund, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller, McKenya Dilworth, Parks Superintendent, Gary Park Board of Commissioners.
Mr. President, excuse me.
Councilwoman Brown?
I move for passage of CPO 2017-03 on third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved properly second by Councilwoman Caldwell. Over here this time.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity to present the overview. When I was first presented the budget, I was promptly told by my Board of Commissioners that they had not really had the time to have any input into the budget. And as such, we tabled it so that we could actually have a meaningful work session. So we worked very diligently in making sure that the vision and the fiscal stewardship was in alignment with whatever we wanted to do in terms of the delivery of excellent and quality service as it relates to the parks. So this amended budget is the reflection of a collective effort of the Board of Commissioners, the vision that I've brought, and also my excellent team members at the park. I'm just so happy to have this opportunity to present this amended budget. And so basically what we've done is we've moved money around to make sure that we are not in the position of any type of shortfall. We have entertained Councilman Smith's suggestion about a business model, so we would be doing somewhat of a semi-cost recovery because a cost recovery does not fit this particular community. And it's also not necessarily in alignment with the tradition of recreation. However, we do embrace any type of positive feedback, and we hope that you will become a part of the master park planning so that we can make sure that we're doing what we need to do to make sure that the parks are functioning at the level that they need to function.
Any questions from any council members?
Yes, so what does this appropriation specifically do?
So basically, the amended budget is basically an attempt to make sense of our fiscal situation. Right now, the park department is equipment poor, so we need the equipment to make sure that we have 57 parks, 20 of which we want to return back to nature because, quite frankly, we no longer have the population that would frequent the parks. So in putting those 20 parks back to nature, it becomes part of a mitigation plan, which is hand in hand with the Department of Commerce because we can actually make money off of that when new businesses come. For example, Speedway is one of the businesses that will be using Brunswick as a mitigation option. So we're just positioning ourselves to make sure that we are not only becoming sustainable, but we're actually making money for the City of Gary.
So 20 parks out of the parks that we have are going to be I like the way you said it. Put
Go back to nature, right?
But the other ones that we have to continue to maintain and manage, your revised budget gives, puts the focus on those parks instead of all the parks.
That would be an adequate assessment.
Is there any other comments, questions? Thank you.
Okay. I just want to also say that we made $264,000 at Marquette because of the efforts of this manager right here and also the team that we have in place. And then we had $62,000 surplus because I know that was an issue last time, so I just wanted to make sure that you all had the information that you needed. I made sure that Councilman Smith has all of the events from this point all the way till December for that particular revenue center. So.
Thank you all.
Sound good?
At this time, public portion is now open. Anyone like to speak for or against? CPO 2017-03.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name's Jim Nowacki. I live in the 2nd District, and I love Gary Parks. And for years, I've been complaining and objecting before the Park Board, before the City Council, that we have to allocate more resources to make sure that we maintain our parks. Of course, there's another way to approach that problem. Instead of managing the parks and maintaining the parks, we can just ignore the parks completely and let them go back to wild areas. And, you know, I don't know why I didn't think of that. You know, if we let our parks just go back to the woods, well, we could save an awful lot of money. We could probably save some of these personnel here. We might even be able to save money on our superintendent's salary if we just decide we really only need one park in the city. We need Marquette Park because, well, we know why, but I'm of the mind that says that all communities should have parks. You know, that's not a new idea that I made up. That's an idea that has been an essential part of urban planning for hundreds of years. Not me. Great urban planners for generation after generation said communities need parks. I'm not going to argue with our superintendent. She says, well, just as well if it's a overgrown wooded area and, you know, and people can use it for whatever they use those ignored, dilapidated, weed-filled areas for. I would make some changes into this. I would like to have seen more grounds people and custodians, et cetera, to help maintain our parks. But the council will decide. The council will say, we can save money not by finding efficient ways to manage our park as we've been doing it for 110 years. We could just ignore the parks and let them take care of themselves while we hire a new fiscal manager and give some small raises across the board. And I'm not saying they're not needed. But I'm going to urge the council to take a close look at the plan to close 20 parks in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wackman.
Good evening, Council. Kwabena Razuli, 6th District. In the area where I live is right by Howell Park, and I often tell this story. Several years ago when I was working from home, I would leave the house, go out in the middle of the day during the summertime, and the pool would be just filled with children from the neighborhood, just having a great time. And I always said, I want to go swimming in there. It was so hot a couple of these summers when we were enjoying Howell Park. And you all know, like I know, after you get finished swimming, you're tired. You get you something to eat, you take your nap. You're not running around in vacant houses. You're not involved in all the riffraff and the mischief that we could be involved in. But I would just like to, like the previous speaker just said, us to put more resources into our parks. hiring more children and more youth to work during the summertime as lifeguards and things like that at our parks. Just like and more general services workers or workers to keep our parks up. It's so very important that we have more efficient, better parks, more things for our children to do. So I just like to say again, we need more resources for our parks. And I don't know if anything about the pools were in there, but we need a lot more of these pools open too. Thank you.
Good evening. I had a conversation today with someone from Indianapolis, and we were talking about things that people could do. And I told him, I said, I would love to take you to Marquette Park and let you walk there. The beauty of the place is wonderful. As many of you know, I'm trying to see about rehabilitating a playground in Dory Miller, where my grandson used to play. We need our parks. We need a place for our children to go, to be. Because there's too much out here that they can get into that will bring about negative actions. We need our children to go somewhere where years from now they can reflect and talk about, remember when I was little? Remember when we was little? We used to go here, we used to go there. I hear that, just as Kwabena said, I hear that when they talk about the swimming pools. Remember back in the day when we used to go swimming? Where can they go swimming now? So I encourage you all to come up with plans, to come up with individuals that are willing to partner and give our children a safe haven again, some place that they can consider their happy place when they're going through hard times and bad times, some place where families can come and enjoy and don't have to spend $20, $30, $40 like certain places in Maryville. But they can come and just enjoy no matter what their income is. Thank you.
Thank you. Public portion is closed. I guess that was throughout Mr. Nowacki's idea of just having one park in Miller. Our parks are definitely important inside our community, but I do concur that we need to decrease the population of parks. And some parks we do need to turn back to nature where we can. I know inside a committee meeting where Councilwoman Rogers reminded me of Carolina Park, sits directly inside of a neighborhood. So that's not a park that we can really turn back to nature and just say we let that park just go. That's a part we have to maintain. But we have to prioritize which ones we can turn back to nature and which ones that we can maintain. But at the same time, each district needs a good, healthy park for the kids inside the community. Is there any comments from any council members?
Yes. I'd just like to ask the park superintendent when she prepares her park plan, or if it's already prepared, if she could forward a copy to the council just for our review. No, we're not going to be left with one park, as Mr. Nowacki said, but I would like to know the parks that we will be left with.
We're in the process of doing our master park plan. We started that in November of last year. We've done something that has never been done before, and that's having 5 citizens from each district be a part of the stakeholders committee. So we've gone directly to the citizens of Gary to ask what they would like to see done. When I say 20 parks, that's an estimate because I'm not the end-all be-all. However, it makes good sense to make sure that we can manage our parks. We're not going to be left with one park. We're not going to be left with 5. We're going to be left with a substantial amount of parks, but at the same time, we're going to make sure that every neighborhood has a very nice park that they can actually walk to. We work very closely with Green Urbanism that has a program called I want to say vacancy to vibrancy is not the right title, but that's the gist of it. And so basically you have a vacant lot that you turn into a green space or a space of gathering. So that, accompanied with the parks that we can maintain and sustain based off our population and based off the frequency of the usage of the park, that's how we're going to move forward and assess that. However, if the stakeholders feel that that is not something that is in our best interest for our parks plan, then we don't do it. Because it's about the citizens of Gary, and the citizens of Gary's drive the Parks Master Plan. Now, the other thing about the Parks Master Plan is it becomes the guiding document for programming. So it isn't just about the physicality of the parks. It's very much about making sure that people feel safe, because when you talk about people relocating to the city of Gary, safety is very, very important. And if people don't feel safe, they won't congregate in parks. They won't go to green spaces. They won't patronize the pavilions. Right now, we have 15 beautiful, functional pavilions. And I know the critics like to talk about Marquette, but all parks are equal in my mind. And I know Councilman Brewer doesn't really agree with me on that one, because he doesn't agree with me. That's fine. But when I say that all parks are equal, that means that we will treat all parks as being equal. In other words, we're not going to let one park or two parks be overgrown and Marquette's beautiful. We're not going to do that. And I don't even believe my predecessor did that. But I think in moving forward, we need to be realistic about the fact that the population in the city of Gary has gone down significantly, which directly, not indirectly, but it directly affects the frequency of the usage of parks. So we have to be smart about how we're going about, our manpower and our resources. As far as groundskeeper, I'm so glad you brought me back up. Because as far as groundskeepers, we've increased their money, because we have a team and concerted, I know, but we have a team. We have a team of people that have been working for years and years to make sure that our parks are places where we want to go. So it isn't about necessarily the quantity that you have, but it's about the quality of the service that we're providing the city of Gary. So I invite all of you to come. I mean, we're having a meeting what's today? It's Tuesday. I haven't slept in 2 days, so it's Tuesday, Wednesday. So when is our meeting? Nowacki? Okay, Thursday. He's on the committee. So see how, giving and open we are as a entity. So we have a meeting Thursday, and I invite all of the council people to come or have some more of your constituents, because right now our goal was to have 30 stakeholders. Right now we only have 20. So everything is transparent, everything is open, but the real drivers of this plan are the citizens of Gary.
Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
Yes.
Councilman Prothro?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2017-03 has passed on all three readings, so ordered.
CPR 2016-14, resolution declaring official intent of the City of Gary to reimburse expenditures, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPR 2016-14 on third and final reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Caldwell. Overview at this time?
Mr. President, members of the council, CPR 2016-14 is a resolution to provide flexibility to the city. What it does is it allows you to reimburse the city from bond proceeds if necessary. Basically, once you decide, the Department of Public Works decides what roads, in conjunction with the city, decides what roads are going to be financed out of Series A of the bond issue. If for some reason you needed to fund some portions of the beginning of that before the bonds were sold and closed, then that portion that you spent could be reimbursed back to the city once the bonds are closed. The federal government, when you're issuing tax-exempt bonds, requires you to declare an intent to reimburse any of those expenditures if you're going to do so. If you don't spend any money that needs reimbursed and you don't do anything, then this has no effect. But if you need to do it, this gives you the flexibility to do that.
Any comments from any council members? Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
No.
Councilman Proto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
No.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
No.
President Brewer?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 5 yes, 3 noes.
Vote of 5 yes, 3 no. CPR 2016-14 has passed on all three readings, so ordered.
CPR 2017-01, a resolution by the Gary Common Council on the Clear the Airways Project and the programming of WPWX Power 92.3 and WGCI 107.5 FM, sponsored by the Gary Common Council.
Whose committee this? To the Airways Project, it's in Ways and Means. Yeah. So Councilwoman Brown, can you bring this out of Ways and Means for me?
I'm sorry.
Can you bring this out of Ways and Means for me?
Oh, okay,
For that.
Mr. President, move for passage of CPR 2017-01 on third and final reading.
There's a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Wade. Overview at this time.
Good evening, council and community. Thank you for allowing us to come up here and share with the people. As a lot of people here know, some of who've been working with us on this issue, the music being played on radio stations all throughout the country that targets African youth is sad, it's embarrassing, it's dangerous. And what I want to share with you all right now, and I ask you respectfully to please close your eyes before you read it. This is the #1 song in the country for our children today. In the country, on radio stations WPWX is #1, on radio station WGCI is #2. The top 11 songs on radio station WGCI, out of the top 11, 5 of them have this line, which is the fourth line. If you look at what you see right here, it says, "If Young Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot you." Now, this is a line in 5 of the top 11 songs on one of the most popular radio stations in the Chicagoland area, of which we are part of, that targets our children. And so when you have a song in hot rotation, they play it 15 to 20 times per day on these stations. So you have this particular song, or these songs with this statement in it, being played 5 times, in 5 songs, 15 to 20 times per day, constantly on these radio stations, encouraging us to shoot and kill each other. One of our comrades in the struggle, he made a rap where he said, if you turn the radio down, or turn the radio on the FM radio or any radio station, turn the dial, go from top to bottom, the only time you will hear people on the radio with songs bragging about shooting people is when there's songs that target young African children. And so this resolution is so very important, and we really appreciate you all at least hearing it, and I hope you will pass it. But what it does is it gives us more ammunition in this fight to protect our children against this vile, vulgar, and vicious audio assault, as Mrs. Campbell called it, audio attack on our children, on our people. Amen. Every time our children turn the radio on, they've been called the N-word. Every time they turn the radio on, their mothers, their daughters, I'm sorry, not the children's daughters, but their mothers, their aunties, their big sisters are being called B's and H's. And there's a line in this song, ... And y'all may not know what dot means, but our children does, and it's them H's out there. It's so disrespectful, and it has to stop. We talked to psychologists, we talked to school teachers, we talked to administrators, and they all say the same thing, that this is adversely affecting the people. And we got to be careful with our own school system and the radio station that we have, because lately they've been playing some of this music too, so we have to address them to make sure they stop playing this ratchet music on our own commercial-free radio station. Another question was asked by one of our people who work with us about these advertisers, because that's how these commercial radio stations make their money. They asked the question to the advertiser, would you buy commercials or want your product advertised on a radio station that plays hundreds of songs about killing animals? And their answer was no. So why would you buy commercials on these radio stations that talk about killing black people? So this goes a long way. We appreciate you all hearing this tonight. And again, already New York City has a copy of this. We got this, a lot of this from Wilmington, Delaware, and our comrades out in that area called Rage Against the Ratchet. We've been in touch with one of the aldermen out of Chicago. They want it in Greenville, South Carolina, but it needs to go all around this country because it is so embarrassing, it's so detrimental to our children. And this will go a long way, especially from a city like Gary, Indiana. So again, we appreciate you all hearing this. I hope you all pass it. Thank you.
Is there any questions from any council members at this time?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Wade.
I'd just like to say that Kwabena is a resident in the 6th District, and he's been asking us to do this for a long time. And we did get an opportunity to get together and go over the wording, and I am in full support of Kwabena. He has gone across the nation with this activism for Clear the Airwaves. And I believe that we should take the time, the little authority that we have to support this resolution.
This is going to go a long way.
Thank you.
It will.
Any other council members? Let me just say, I saw this. I like to say this morning, I did a little experiment with my own kids, taking them to school. Normally I had a radio station set where I wanted, but this time I put it on one of these stations here, and I won't name them today. And as we drove, the kids noticed the station was on the wrong channel. And they continued, I guess they were trying to see how long was I going to continue to listen to it before I said something. So I played a little crazy this morning. And they finally told me, Daddy, you know you got the station on the wrong channel. My thing was, I couldn't understand half the things that they were saying anyway on the station. So I thank you for the wording that you brought us on tonight. But I know a lot of those things is not appealing to our young women, nor to our young black males in this society here. So I do thank you for your effort. I would ask that you would take it a step further if you would take it to our charter schools and have insisted the board pass a resolution, and to our public school also, and even to the county council.
We certainly will. We want it to go as far as possible because we do have to do something about this, and we appreciate, again, you all hearing it. It's going to go a long way. Thank you.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
Yes.
Councilman Proto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
President Boer?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote to 8-0, it has passed on all three readings.
CPR 2017-02, a resolution to approve the purchase of fire engines for the Gary Fire Department, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller Chief Paul Bradley, Gary Fire Department.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPR 2017-02 on third and final reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
The move properly second. Over at this time.
Mr. President, yes, I move to amend by substitution CPR 2017-02.
Got a second?
Second.
The move properly second by Councilwoman Caldwell. Roll call on the amendment.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher.
Yes.
Councilman Proto.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Vote to 8-0. CPR 2017-02 has been amended. Overview at this time. Chief, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. The Gary Fire Department is requesting the purchase of 5 new engines. As you know, our fleet is aging, and we would like to replace some of our apparatus with these newer apparatus. The older apparatus would be taken out of service and moved to our training facility, so we'd be able to use these apparatus for training. The figure is quite a large sum, $2.3 million, but the life of a fire truck is averaging 20 years, so we get 20 years out of a fire truck. The trucks will be located throughout the city, not just one district. We're designing the trucks to fit in any fire station within the city. At this time, due to the apparatus that we have, we're moving a lot of fire trucks around. Some of the fire trucks cannot fit in certain stations. So we have learned from that mistake that we did, and we're going to make sure that all the fire stations be able to go to any station in any community, the older stations and the newer stations. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll take them.
How many, I'm sorry.
And question, Councilman.
Yes, how many fire trucks are you all ordering?
5 engines.
So one for each open station, is that right, or is there 6 open stations right now?
No, it'd be one. We're going to have to. Some are going to take up the place of older engines that's in stations right now. So, like if you say the station number 1 is right across the street, it has no fire engine at this time.
Okay.
Because that one's older, so we got to buy one to replace that one. So there's no engine in that station at this time.
And so how many engines are currently running right now?
Right now we're averaging 7 a day.
Okay, and 5 of the 7 are going to be replaced with the new engines?
No, 2 of the 7 are going to be replaced. Then you'll be able to have 10 a day.
All right, thank you.
Any other council member? Thank you, Chief. All right. At this time, public portion is now open. I'm sorry. Okay, resolution. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher.
Yes.
Councilman Proto.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
8-0, CPR 2017-02 has passed on all 3 readings, so ordered.
Mr. President, it's pending ordinance and resolutions on third and final.
Thank you. Before we go to second reading, I'd like to just take a time to acknowledge our young people that we have here on today. Acknowledge and thank you from WJPN, and the council would like to acknowledge and thank the students from the New Beginning Outreach for coming and helping us out on this live broadcast on tonight. We appreciate each and every last one of you all. They're all over the room working, the different cameras, the sound system. So we'd like to take the time just to thank you all. Council pending ordinance and resolution on second reading.
CPO 2017-04, an ordinance establishing 2017 appropriations for the Mayor's Donation Fund in the City of Gary, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salita Green, City Controller.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2017-04 on second reading. Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday, February 15th at 5:30 p.m. and a public hearing February 21st.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher.
Yes.
Councilman Proto.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Vote to 8-0. CPO 2017-04 moves back to the Finance Committee. So ordered.
CPO 2017-05, an ordinance establishing 2017 appropriations for the Special Events Department of the City of Gary, Indiana, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller, and Special Events Department.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2017-05 on second reading. Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday, February 15th at 5:30 p.m. and a public hearing on February 21st.
Second.
Been moved properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher? Councilman Proto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0. CPO 2017-05 moves to the Finance Committee. 5:30, February 15, 2017.
CPO 2017-06, an ordinance establishing additional appropriations for the Community Development Choice Neighborhoods Initiative Grant in the City of Gary, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller, and Special Events Department.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2017-06 on second reading. Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday, February 15th at 5:30 p.m. and a public hearing on February 21st.
Second.
Move properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher? Councilman Proto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0. CPO 2017-06 moves to the Finance Committee, February 15 at 5:30 p.m.
CPO 2017-07, an ordinance establishing 2017 appropriations for the Municipality Set-Aside Program, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Salida Green, City Controller.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2017-07 on second reading. Finance Committee meeting on Wednesday, February 15th at 5:30 p.m. and a public hearing on February 21st.
Second.
Been moved properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher? Councilman Proto?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0. CPO 2017-07 moves to the Finance Committee, February the 15th, 2017 at 5:30 p.m.
CPO 2017-08, an amendment to ordinance number 8954, regulating city ordered towing services in the City of Gary, Indiana Municipal Code, sponsored by Herbert Smith, Councilman at Large, Gary County Council.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman.
I would like to suspend the rules and pass CPO 2017-08 on all three readings.
There's second.
Second.
Move properly second by Councilman Smith. Roll call on suspension of the rules, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher? Councilman Proto? Yes. Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0. The motion fails for we do not have a unanimous quorum at this time for this vote.
You're correct. Under our rules, Mr. Chair, Ms. Hatcher is present and has not been excused, so her vote would be needed for a unanimous vote. I don't know, did she leave for the evening or no? She just stepped away. We can continue business and do a motion to reconsider when she arrives back.
that's when it's the same thing. Yes. Well, yes. That's a resolution. Yeah, that's a resolution. I don't know what you all take was on that.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Did you want to sign it to committee?
You want to sign it? Okay, that's fine. Let's move to, Madam Clerk, can you skip down and let's go to CPR 2017-03?
CPR 2017-03, a resolution by the Gary Common Council in support of Indiana Senate Resolution Number 12 concerning the motor vehicle inspection and maintenance programs in Lake and Porter County, sponsored by the Gary Common Council.
Mr. President, I move for CPR 2017-03 to move for passage on the second reading with a committee meeting February the 15th at 5 p.m. and a public hearing February the 21st.
Second.
Moving properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
Yes.
Councilman Proto? Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Vote to 8-0. CPR 2017-03 moves to public safety meeting February the 15th at 5 p.m. So ordered. Can I have a motion to reconsider CPO 2017-08 on the last vote that was just taken on that one?
Mr. President, I'd
Councilman
like
Smith.
to motion to reconsider CPO 2017-08.
Second.
It's been moved properly second to reconsider CPO 2017-08. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
Yes.
Councilman Proto? Yes. Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Vote to 8-0. CPO 2017-08 has been reconsidered. The motion will have to be put before the council again to take up for a vote. Councilwoman Caldwell? Yes.
Mr. President, I would like to, for CPO 2017-08, for the rules to be suspended and be passed on all three readings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Brown. Roll call on suspension of the rules for CPO 2017-08.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Can I have some discussion before the vote?
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, let's do it in the bit. Let's see what I talk about if we do it. Okay.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
No.
Councilman Proto? Yes. Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7 yes, 1 no.
7 yes, 1 no. It fell for lack of a majority, unanimous vote from the council to pass on all three readings of this meeting. So you have to send it to committee.
Okay. We would like to send CPO 2017-08 to committee for passage on the second reading, February the 15th, 5 p.m. Public hearing, February the 21st.
Second.
Been second by Councilwoman Brown. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hatcher?
Yes.
Councilman Proto? Yes. Councilwoman Rogers?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Vote to 8-0. CPO 2017-08 has been put into a public safety committee February the 15th at 5 p.m. So ordered.
Mr. President, it's pending ordinance and resolutions on second reading.
You all could have put everything on the 14th. I didn't have nothing to do that day.
Yeah, right.
At this time, I have the mayor will report at this time.
Good evening. And
appreciate the opportunity to both answer questions and make a few announcements. I wanted to, one, thank, and I didn't say anything when you were doing it, but commend the council for their passage of the resolution regarding the airways, and I think the suggestion relative to the school boards, local school boards, and other legislative bodies is extremely important in this effort to just basically take back our children and what they're listening to. I see Mr. Campbell in the audience. I want to just acknowledge that he was honored at Jefferson School 2 weeks ago. And he was acknowledged for all of his work, not just on the school board, but as a founding member of the DADS organization, and as one who has been a stalwart in this community on behalf of children and on behalf of others in the community. So I just wanted to say congratulations. I also, you're welcome. Also, wanted to acknowledge, Mr. President, you earlier noted that New Beginnings Ministry, Outreach Ministry was present. Just wanted to thank Isaiah Stevenson, Kevin Addison, Brianna Edwards, Jeremiah Jones, Aaliyah Jackson, Michael Addison Jr., and their adult supervisor, who I only know, well, I know his given name, but I call him Big C so much, it has escaped me. But I just want to thank him for bringing them out as well, and thank the young people for volunteering. And then their pastor just happens to be Anthony Edwards, who so many of us know. I also wanted to just add my kudos to Dr. Roper. I have a recalcitrant cat, and I don't know if it would be a gift or a curse to send Gracie to her, but you know, she is a part of a young people who are coming back to Gary every day, and you know, we certainly talk about the reduction in our population, but we do have people like Dr. Roper who want to come back, who want to bring their businesses back, and we are very, very grateful for that. And so just want to congratulate her on that new vet clinic. I also want to send condolences out to the family of Dee Barber, to her mother, Marion, and to her and her brothers and their entire family in the loss of her father, Cornelius Joseph Sr. He was funeralized today, and the church was overflowing because it was, I think, a testament to Mr. Joseph's dedication to the community and certainly to his family's dedication. So I want to certainly offer my condolences to her and her family. And want to note that since the last council meeting, Mrs. Lily Chandler was also funeralized, and Mrs. Chandler was 98 years old, a longtime resident of this community, and that was a tremendous celebration of her life. This weekend, well, first today, Miss Sammy Locke turned 80. Want to give her a happy birthday shout out. I spoke with her earlier, and she was partying like a rock star. And then I want to acknowledge Mrs. Edith Coleman, who turns 100 this weekend. And she's the wife of former city controller Henry Coleman, who was a controller here in the 60s. So that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. There have been a number of workshops going on at Art House for those who are entrepreneurs already, who are looking to be entrepreneurs, culinary entrepreneurs, and there is a lot of excitement. There are a lot of people who are planning on being butchers and caterers and bakers and food vendors and chefs and restaurateurs, and we certainly, and then there's some people who are just food hobbyists, who are just foodies. And that's a huge opportunity. And so the building that was rehabbed last year and completed is getting business, and people are certainly utilizing it. Wanted to bring people up to date. There were this week, or actually last week, bids that were let for work to be done at the Metro Center. It's been a long time coming, I know, but it will be fixed up. I get emails, I get notes every day, every week about the status of the Metro Center, and we are not ignoring that. Sometimes there's a little more red tape than we would like to see, and unfortunately, this project moved like government, and that is not something that I'm proud of, but I am proud that it is going to get done. Likewise, with the fire station number 5, or the replacement fire station, and with the Hudson Campbell renovations. So those projects are moving. They're not moving as quickly as we'd like to see them move, but they are moving. Want to announce that the city won a $5,000 Home Depot Community Impact Grant, and as of February 1st, applications were available to seniors that are vets and homeowners so that they can get weatherization, door tucking, caulking, and other installation. It's not a lot of money, but if you need those things and if you qualify for the grant, that is a lot of money for you. I was also getting a note about the post office on 40th Avenue right off of Broadway that is temporarily closed. I've been working with Congressman Visklowski. He is aware of it. The issue is a leaking roof, and he has been in direct communication with that landlord to get that going.
Stop to Ivy Tech Community College.
We also have, I want to invite people to attend and join us. We'll have a council member meeting before then, but on Friday, February 24th, will be the State of the City. Tickets are $25, and they go into a donation fund. In addition to that, though, this year, during the month of March, we're going to go to each district in the city for those people who may be working or who cannot otherwise attend the State of the City. They will get the same information at those district meetings. So we will have the State of the City at the Genesis Center, but we will also take the State of the City to communities around the city so that residents can hear and can provide their input. I've been working very closely with Senator Melton, other members of the Indiana General Assembly as it relates to the Gary Community School Corporation. There are challenges. There are challenges at the city from a financial standpoint. There are also challenges with the school corporation, and we are working together with the Indiana General Assembly to address what we know too well to be those challenges, both on the city side and the school corporation side. You know, I've said it, and I want to be clear. I do support school choice. I know that different kids need different things. I saw that with my own child. But I want to make sure that every choice is a viable choice. And that is why, you know, sometimes people say, well, you're spending so much time with the Gary Community School Corporation. That's because right now they need the help. And I have encouraged and continue to encourage the community to provide that help. But choice is irrelevant if a choice is substandard.
And so we want to make sure that every choice is a viable choice for our parents and their children. And so with that, yesterday I saw this firsthand, but I know that there have been intermittent light outages on Lake Street, and they were actually going to install it today. It was pitch black last evening, yesterday. They were going to install it today, and of course the weather worked against them, and so they are continuing to work on that, and certainly by the end of the week it should be finished. But the part came in, they had to order a part, the part is in, and they are involved in the installation now. And as I said earlier, in terms of the sewers and the drainage, that is simply a function of nature getting ahead of us today. And, you know, we maximize what we take in at the plant. We, of course, don't want to have any violations with IDEM, so that's a balancing effort and one that we are currently engaged in. Finally, I know that we had a lot of conversation about this last year. We are at the end of our hiring process for the IT director, for the director of vehicle maintenance, and for the director of the airport. We had one setback at the airport, and that was that the person who was working as the head of the airport on the side of AFCO, actually his last day was January 20th. And so it's going to take us a little more time, but you know, I wanted to give the council an update on that because there was a commitment, and I want to ensure that you are kept abreast.
Any questions for any council members? Okay. All right. At this time, public portion is now open.
Mr. President, before you get to the public portion.
Yes, sir.
I want to give a shout out to my nephew, Shamari Lipsky. He graduated from Westside last year, and he wrote a book. You can get it on Amazon. The book is called The Dreamers, and I never knew he was a writer. He graduated from Westside. I see you smiling over there. And you can go to Amazon and purchase his book for $9.99.
All right, public portion. Mr. Nowacki, you're up first. Then I have a Roper, and then Mr. Wright. Those three in that order.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Jim Nowacki. I live in this 2nd district, and I'd like to get an early start on my State of the City address. I know you're all waiting for that. I'm not going to charge you $25. I'm just going to give it to you for free. We find today that the city's going to take $22 million, turn it into $13 million. That's not good. Find out that there's plans to close 1/3 of the city parks. Council didn't hear anything about it. That's not very good. We find that we got $5,000 from Home Depot. That's good. That's very good. Of course, this year we'll be losing our Menards store, which will be moving a couple of blocks to get out of Gary. They'll be moving just down the street, the next town over, Highland, I believe. And Griffith, I'm corrected, moving over to Griffith. Want to get out of Gary. That's not good. We lose about 1,700 people every single year for the last 15 years. That's the census data. Now, that's bad news, but it's better news than losing the 2,000 people we've been losing for the last 30 years. So maybe that's a step in the right direction. We're only losing 1,700 people every year, year after year after year. That's not good. We find that businesses complain that while we've got money for a big project here and there, We didn't use the money as it came in, $1.2 million, to handle all of the basic things that have to be done. In other words, we could have used, believe me, we could have used $1.2 million to make sure we're maintaining the streets we have, instead of throwing it all at just paving a couple of streets. That money would have gone very, very far doing maintenance work so that every community the streets are maintained. And use it for some paving too. So, well, I can report that we're headed in the same direction.
Thank you,
It
Mr.
doesn't
Wackey.
appear to be the right direction. Thank you.
Ms. Roper? Good? Okay. Mr. Wright. Then Mr. McClendon, Mr. Razuli. Then Ms. Johnson, you'll be last.
First, I would like to say to the president, they were supposed to send you a letter up there acknowledging that we did have you left, the ex-chief police of Gary, Lamont Chavez in the audience. So, we didn't get the opportunity. I think one thing, once again, I say about including people. As I look at this sign that says Gary Common Council salutes Black history. And you know what, Obama's picture there. You have, I guess, Rosa Parks, that's supposed to be, and Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King stood for justice for all people. But it's an insult to me when you don't have Katie Hall, which was the city clerk years ago in Gary, and she sponsored the bill to support Martin Luther King's national holiday. So how can you exclude, and then Mayor Hatchett, whether we agree or disagree, put her in a position to do that? So when we say Afro-American people in Black history, how can we exclude them? And I listened to the mayor when she was here. She acknowledged, she said that she was working to help, the school situation, financial difficulties. But she did not acknowledge Ed Chapman, which is working with Eddie Mel, Earl Rogers, and Ed Chapman carries a lot of weight downstate. See, we need to include and tell people the truth about some things. Ain't about me being important or the mayor being important. It's about telling the truth to people that help make things happen. So that's what I'm saying, council people, open your eyes, because it's coming. But respect means a lot.
Mr. McClendon. Mr. Razuli.
Good evening, Council. Again, appreciate you all on that vote on the resolution. Ratchet radio station again. Gives us more ammunition and more work to do. Black History Month, we have a big program coming up on Thursday at IUN. One of our greatest living historians, Minoko Rashidi, will be at Bergman Auditorium. Bergman Auditorium at IUN. That's on this Thursday. It's a free program, so Brothers Band is traveled all around the globe where African people live, and always does great presentations. So get a chance to come out this Thursday and check out Dr. Minoko Rashidi. Also, there's a program this Saturday afternoon at the Calumet Township Black History Program. One of the things I want to talk about, and we can't forget too, this is the 50th anniversary, and the brother just mentioned Mayor Hatchett, this is the 50th anniversary when he was elected this year. And so we have to properly recognize him and recognize him. And we have to, when you think about, the history of this country and how we, oppressed, how we struggled. We had the first Black mayor, and we don't do enough for that legacy, for that honor. And we really need to do that. And this is an opportune time to do it. Not being from here, being born in LA, growing up in LA, I knew two things about Gary. One was Mayor Hatcher, the other, of course, was the Jackson 5, which is another group that we do not do enough for. We struggle with all this financial issues and paving and the bonds, and there's so much. We have a lot of struggles. But I always say this again, at least $29 million each year is raised by Memphis just because of Elvis's legacy. They have Elvis Presley Boulevard there. we have to acknowledge properly Jackson 5 also. And it's a money maker, it's a no-brainer. Real quick, I was out of town when I got this message about a dog being shot. I get back to town, watching the news, dogs be covering $22,000 for the dog this, dog that. Then I get a call, or get a message, the funeral for the brother, for the young black man that got shot and killed is on Saturday. Nothing about the young brother that got shot and killed, but always about the dog who survived. And then we find out this Lake County is in Gary, and that's who did the shooting. Now, we have a sheriff who's under indictment for taking bribes from tow truck companies who told him once they wouldn't get enough tolls, we weren't getting enough tolls. So what does he instruct his officers to do, according to the indictment? Go into Gary. Go into Gary. That's a slap in the face to our people. I was here a couple months ago when we had all of the new recruits here for our police. Let's get them out of here and handle our own business. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Good evening once again to the council. In saluting Black History Month, I had got a chance to go by Watson's Academy for Boys, and I hadn't been there in some time because of the tragedy that happened in my family. And as soon as I walked in the door and I looked to the left, there was this huge display honoring Dory Miller. And I was so amazed at it, I took a picture of it and went immediately to the Dory Miller office and showed it to the manager, and then went down to the Housing Authority, and my question was, have you seen this? And they were like, no. I said, well, I encourage you to go over there to the Boys Academy and have a conversation with the principal. And in the same vein, I looked to the right, and there was this nice display honoring former Mayor Richard Hatcher. And I said, you know what? This is what it's supposed to be about. We always talk about different Black history heroes, but how often do we teach our children in this city about our own city's heroes? WLTH, Coach Earl Smith, took a surprise guest to be on the radio for Black History. And to my shock, and I was disappointed I missed it, it was my uncle, Coach Willie J. Williams, who broke Jesse Owens' track record. And, you know, it's that legacy that Gary has, and we need to enhance that legacy. We have all this artwork. We seem to be promoting that this city is a haven for the arts. Well, I saw a shirt somewhere. Oh, I remember where I saw it. Beautiful Things in the Village. And it had a listing of Gary celebrities, people that were born in Gary, Indiana. And I said, wow, when I get a chance, I'm going to go back and I'm going to buy that shirt, and I'm going to wear that shirt. Because I am proud of this city. I was born here, I was raised here. Lord's will, Thursday, I will celebrate my 52nd birthday, and yes, I'm proud to be over here.
All right.
And because of that, I love this city. I've had offers to leave this city, and I tell people all the time, my purpose and my heart is here. I was born here, I was raised here. I salute Dolly Miller, the former historian that's trying to preserve our legacy here. Thank you for everyone trying to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson is our last speaker for tonight. Let me just say, I didn't know Mr. Taylor was here until he proceeded out, and we had a speaker at the mic, and I was not going to jump over that speaker that was at the mic. But the message that I had gotten up here did not read as such that he was here. It read totally different. So I was not going to report out anything that I was not clear on up here. So people can make assumptions of why you so-called overlooking people. It's not always like it appears to be. The message was not clear when I got it, and I did not know they brought a different message up here to me. So I just want to make clear of that. I thank you all for coming and attending this meeting here on tonight. I thank the ones that viewing us at home and by radio. At this time, I entertain a motion for adjournment. We now adjourn.